From Los Angeles, I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Doug Stolhand. Thanks for joining us for another edition of the Puck Podcast. It's Sunday, September 14th, 2025. This is the first period of a three-period podcast. The first period, which some of you are watching on YouTube, will cover all the big news from the past week in the NHL. Second period is our interview or special feature segment. We continue our division previews. We looked at the Central Division last week. We're checking out the Atlantic Division this week, and our third period is our fan feedback segment. We'll read listener emails. We'll check our off-ice report. We'll find out how Doug's trip up to Corvallis, Oregon went. I'll tell you about me going out to the Kings, Ducks, and Sharks rookie camp, rookie tournament, and maybe add whatever else is going on in our lives. You can find all three periods of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. If you like what you're seeing, please like and subscribe on YouTube.
This is the 20th NHL season that we have covered here on this here podcast. We started back in July of 1996, and we have recorded at least one show every single week since then. We cover all 32 teams equally, and as Everyday Eddie says, no days off. We cover all the games, all the action, all the news, and we actually have news this week. The off season is over. Players are on the ice. We've got injury news. We've got signings. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about, which is very nice because it's been a long off season, but that's over now. And here to get us all started with the top story of the week is my good friend, my co-host, and a man who once, as I said, took money out of a tip jar to complete his payment for a sandwich, Eddie Garcia.
Well, in my defense, I was high on crack at the time. Yeah, we do have some news this week. A lot of goalie news for some reason, but our top story does not involve a goalie. It involves one of the top wingers in the National Hockey League. His name is Kiril Kaprizov. He is currently with the Minnesota Wild. We'll see if he will be with them for the future, but he was offered an 8-year, $128 million contract extension and said, no, thank you. The deal would have made him the highest paid player in NHL history in terms of average annual value, $16 million per season, and total money. Kaprizov is in the fifth and final year of a contract that's paying him $9 million per season. He will be an unrestricted free agent after this coming season, and he has a full no movement clause. We talked about on last week's show, Doug, which you were not at. We talked about Connor McDavid's comments that were eye-catching, and him saying basically, we're going to take our time and who knows what's going to happen. And we also had a quote from Craig Leopold, the owner of the Wild, who was very chesty about, we're going to make a big offer to Krill and we think we will have this done soon. Well, they made a big offer to him, and I don't think they were expecting him to say no thanks, but he did. What is your reaction to Kiril Kaprizov turning down the opportunity to be the highest paid player in NHL history?
Well, let me start with Connor McDavid because I think that's a part of this story. Those are both guys that are UFAs after this coming season. And I think the reason, and I alluded to this in my comments before I left, I think the reason McDavid's waiting is he wants to see what Kaprizov gets and make sure that he is the highest paid player. I want more than that because he deserves more than that. He's the best player in the league. So if the first person signs and then the other person beats that with average annual value that is higher, total contract value that is higher, it's just neither one of them are going to go poor at any point in their life, but it's a bragging right to be the highest paid player in the league. So I think that's why McDavid is waiting. Now, as for Craig Leopold, when the owner, and I'm sure he was talking to GM Bill Guerin, and got the vibe that I think Kaprizov came back to Minnesota from wherever he spends his off seasons this past week on Tuesday. And he was expecting basically when he gets here, he's going to sign the contract. We're going to have a big press conference. And then next week we start training camp and off we go. Well, he gets there Tuesday. No contract is signed. I don't know how this leaked out. I'm sure the Wild are furious at that, at the details leaking out. And I'm curious which side leaked it out. Was it Kaprizov and his agent, someone in that office, or was it somebody in the Minnesota Wild office? Because it doesn't seem to benefit either side for this to leak. It doesn't look good to Kaprizov turning down the highest paid and by far the biggest contract in the NHL right now, right? Like the current biggest contract is what, 14 million?
Yes, Leon
And
Draisaitl.
and he would be making over 16 million a year. So it doesn't make sense for him because I think it's a bad look. Plus, it's going to create all kinds of drama around the upcoming season. And it certainly doesn't make any sense for the Wild to leak it because it makes them look awful. I mean, imagine.
I think they both have benefit from leaking it out. Actually,
Well, we'll get to that in a second.
okay.
Because my point would be, if you're a Minnesota Wild fan, you got to be sick to your stomach. We draft this guy, we
Yes.
develop him, he becomes what we want him to be, which is a franchise type player, and we offer him everything you could possibly offer a free agent right now, the max term, max value. And he says no. So if he's going to leave, if he doesn't want to be here, that's awful because we developed the guy we've been looking for since I'm trying to remember the name of the guy that they had that scored 5 goals. Gavrikov was your
Or
defense.
Gabrick, I mean, Marian Gabrick.
Marian Gabrick, yeah. So you've been looking for a guy of that ilk since Marian Gabrick.
Yes.
And you finally get it. And he apparently doesn't want to stay. That's the vibe. Now, it's very odd. Like, why would you be negotiating a contract if you don't want to stay? So I ultimately think he will resign in Minnesota. I'm just not sure what the reasoning for turning down this offer was at this time. Seems like the perfect time before training camp. We saw this past week. Injuries can happen at any time, and that's going to affect your value. So why not get that security of an 8-year, $100+ million deal in your pocket, guaranteed money, and never have to worry about rent, food, or anything else for the rest of your life, guaranteed? It seems odd, but I'm curious now, why do you think this is a good thing for both sides?
Well, for Kaprizov, he's now told every other team in the league, get clear space for me because I'm going to be available for you. Just pay me this or a little bit more, and we have a deal. I think he's saying, I don't want to be in Minnesota. And for the Wild, I think they're saying to their fans, hey, we offered this guy a fair deal, and he said no. So you on our side or you on his side? And I think most of the fans will be on the team side in this situation. But we will agree that ultimately this sucks for Wild fans to have to see this guy walk after, I don't know how you feel.
He's not walking yet. I don't, we're a long way away from him walking.
We'll see. But this is a big, I don't want to say F you, but close. I mean, as someone once said, you're worth what someone will pay you. We'll see if they can work this out. But I think that's a very fair deal to offer a very, very good player. However, you're going to make $2 million a year more than the highest paid guy who has been to multiple Stanley Cup finals, who's won an MVP, and who's won a scoring title. And you have done none of that.
Right.
So I will ask you, if you're Bill Guerin, how high are you willing to go for Kaprizov? Because we can lose in the first round with and without you. I'm not saying they're just going to be the same team. Of course, they'll be a lesser team. And if you do end up having to trade him, you're not going to get equal value. But how high are you willing to go though for him? Because he's great, but he's not exactly a game changer. I don't know if you know what I'm saying?
Oh, he's a game changer. He's one of the top 10 forwards in the league.
It's a team game. It's a team
game.
I understand. But if you're the best player and you can't get out of the first round of the playoffs, which they haven't done in a long time.
I understand. But the value is there for him, and the cap is obviously going up. I think at this point for Bill Guerin, the question is, why did they turn it down? And he knows that. I'm sure he's had that conversation with the agent and maybe with Kiril as well. Why did he turn that down? What is it? Is there an offer that they came back with? Was there a counter offer of, we'd like this? And if there is, then I take that to the ownership. I take it to the president of the organization. I go in and we have our meetings and we decide if that makes sense for us to do. And ultimately, I think I would say yes, because with him having the no movement clause, you have no option. your two options are to accept his terms if he has some, or to watch him walk away and get absolutely nothing for him in return in July. And that's worst case scenario. So
what if you ask him, where do you want to go? I
I
mean,
I don't know that he has that answer right now, though. What if he's like, I want to see what my options are in July? I'll be a free agent. I'll sign a 7-year deal. And I want to be courted by the other 31 teams and see what they all have to offer. That basically he wants the fulfillment. Potentially, we don't know any of this. I'm saying potentially he could want the actual event that we thought Mitch Marner was going to be, of every team is interested in you. As you said, teams are clearing the decks salary cap wise to create room for you and promising you the moon. And by then, Connor McDavid will have signed, because I don't think he's leaving Edmonton. By then, you'll have a better value of what your value is worth. And potentially, I don't know the exact date that the 8-year contracts expire and are no longer available. But if at the end of the season or at any point he says to Bill Guerin, I will accept a trade to this team specifically, and I'd like to negotiate a new contract with them before the trade, because that's the team would obviously want to do that. Otherwise, have him leave them in July, then maybe you get something for him. But if you're not dealing from any kind of position of strength, this is the risk with no movement clauses. This is why I would be very stingy on giving them out. You give that.
I agree, but for a guy like him, I probably would have done it.
I don't know. I don't think I would have on this last deal. I would on the next one, but I would basically never give a restricted free agent a no movement clause ever. I don't have to. We own your rights. You play for us or nobody. So I'll give you a no trade clause. You can name some teams you're not willing to be traded to, but I'm not giving you a no movement clause. That's outrageous. That handcuffs me, and it leads to exactly what we have right now, which is where I have no control over the situation. Bill Guerin has no control. If Kaprizov decides, I'm just going to play this out this season and then walk in July, there's literally nothing Bill Guerin can do to stop that. Nothing. And it's going to be corrosive to that entire locker room. Because how do you walk in there and say, hey, fellas, let's give it everything we got this year. Let's go for the cup. When they know you were offered the biggest contract in NHL history and you turned it down. You don't want to be there. And you won't be there a year from then. It's going to be very awkward if this is not resolved somehow before training camp starts later this week. So Bill Guerin has absolutely no power, no control, which infuriates him. That is a guy that does not like having no control. I'm not saying anybody does, but Bill Guerin is the type of guy that he likes calling the shots and being in control of things a lot. And this has got to be driving him absolutely crazy. It's embarrassing for him. It's embarrassing for the organization. The owner's got to be upset. The entire front office has to be upset, and the locker room is going to be upset if this is not resolved. Now, I do think somehow, just gut instinct, he will re-sign with Minnesota. I do think so. I don't know why he turned that down, and maybe that'll be resolved. I can tell you this, the first day of training camp, it's going to be a lot of cameras in his face of asking him exactly that. Why did you turn that down? What is your plan for this season? What is your plan for next season? So that's going to be very interesting questions to be answered, and we will be talking about that on next week's show.
Well, certainly very ballsy of him to turn down $128 million in guaranteed money. I did not expect that. I really didn't. I thought he would. If you asked me, would he sign that deal the way it's been offered? I would say yes, absolutely.
What player wouldn't?
Well, I mean, Kiril Kaprizov apparently, but
I know. But I'm saying, if you told us in advance, if you told me that was the deal that they were offering Connor McDavid, I'd say that's $2 million more than Leon Draisaitl per year, max term.
The Anaheim Ducks have a ton of cap space. If Kiril Kaprizov says he wants $18 million a year, what say you?
Of course.
Is it there's no limit, there's no ceiling here.
Oh, there's a
How
limit.
about
Yeah,
20 million a year?
that's the limit, and that's as
Okay.
high as I'm willing to go. But I'd pay it. If he says I want 25 million, I tell him good luck. But 20 million a year, absolutely, absolutely. A guy that can get you is a highly productive winger.
Yeah.
Is something the Ducks have been. Every team is looking to get. Now we'll see what he's willing to play for down the road, but it's a very interesting deal, and you wonder if he knows something. You wonder if there hasn't been some tampering here,
Yeah.
because otherwise, why would you turn down the bird in the hand? Unless
Unless
you
you know
know
exactly that
Team
someone else will
X
go
is going
higher.
to offer you this in later on this next year. And if I was the Wild, I would be hiring, Harry Nile or whatever private investigator you can up there to crack this case. I want people cracking into his phone, his agent's phone. I want to know who they've been texting, because this stinks. And you got to think Craig Leopold is white hot pissed. This is a billionaire that's not used to being embarrassed publicly. He said it because he believed it, and he got embarrassed 48 hours later. That's not going to go over well. So it's got to be a very uncomfortable office place right now, where I'm not saying a word. My head's down, and that's it. I'm just staying out of eye line of Guerin, Leopold, and everybody else in the front office.
In
How
other
do you sell
news,
tickets when you sell tickets around? The marketing of that team is going to be around that player,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that was the other thing. Like the Ducks, I think on Thursday or Friday, they did a lot of their stuff that they'll have as the interstitials and the graphics and the stuff for broadcast this year for Victory Plus. So they filmed the players in uniform, skating around and posing and doing all that stuff that they'll use for the broadcasts. They're probably doing that for the Wild early this week, if they haven't already. Very awkward. Do we build a marketing campaign around a guy that may not be here? And as you said, giving us the finger? I don't know, man. And if I'm a Wild fan, you talked about being torn between whether or not to cheer for Corey Perry. What the hell? This is our best player. And I'm going to be watching him all season, 82 games, hopefully more. And he may not be here next year, and he doesn't want to be here. It's a terrible situation. I think it's got to be resolved somehow before training camp ends, before the season. But then again, as I said, Bill Guerin has no power. If Kaprizov says, I'm playing this season under this contract, and then, these are my elbows and this is my butt, I'm walking out of here. I don't know what you do. You got no choice other than to say, well, F you, man. And make sure that he has an absolutely miserable last 9 months in Minnesota.
Yeah, I guess hope he has a great year, his final season. Although, how motivated is he to bust his ass for you when he's not going to be with you going forward potentially? So,
yeah, it's
like
a
I said,
tough situation. Is
do
he
you
going to
have a
fight through
list?
injury?
And that's another thing. A guy who has been injured and was injured last year, missed a lot of the season, not taking that guaranteed dough. Wow. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. If you're Bill Guerin and the Wild, I think you say, what would it take for you to sign? And then you either decide we're willing to give him that, or we're not, and we're willing to let him walk in July, because you have no control over the situation. Or you tell him, if you find a team that's willing to give you that right now, we'd like to work out a trade and we can get you there before this season starts. So we get something in return. But that would also tip his hand as to who has been tampering with him.
Well, 5 former Hockey Canada players that were found guilty, or excuse me, say not guilty of sexual assault charges back in July, will be suspended to start the upcoming season. They will be eligible to play this year, starting on December 1st. Dylan Dubé, Cal Foote, Alex Formanton, Carter Hart, and Michael McLeod can sign contracts beginning October 15th, but again, cannot play until December 1st. The players have already missed the last 20 months of their careers. The NHLPA said, quote, to avoid a protracted dispute that would cause further delay, we reached the resolution that the league announced today. We We now consider the matter closed and look forward to the players returning. End quote. I'm not exactly sure what they've been suspended for something that happened before they were even NHL players, and that the NHLPA said, okay. I was
I'd
shocked
be
by this.
I don't understand why the players would agree to this. I'd be banging the table saying I was acquitted. I already missed, and let's take it to another sport, or we can keep it in the NHL, but I don't have a fresh example, but I do for the NFL. Jalen Carter, opening night of the season in the NFL, spits on Dak Prescott, gets ejected before his first snap has even take place. The NFL does not suspend him, saying because he missed the entire game, that is effectively a one-game suspension. So we don't have to suspend him further. He forfeits the game check for that first game. Okay, that's that. In that same mindset, I've already been suspended for 20 months.
Right.
I've already missed a year and a half of my career. I've forfeited the contracts that I had with NHL teams.
Time served, as they say in the law.
Yeah. So why, if I was acquitted of something that was accused of having been done before I was even in your league, what's the suspension for? And if you want to say that publicly, then we can go around. Every owner should be suspended. They've all done something. There's a DUI when he was 31. What the hell? What relevance does that have? He was guilty at least. You know, he was accused of something when he was 10. I mean, you know, what the hell? This is stupid to me. And I don't know why the players or the NHLPA went along with this. They're acquitted. Reinstate them today, period. If you can find cause, if you want to go public with something that says why they should be suspended, let's hear it. Otherwise, we're going to start talking to the 32 teams and see if we can get a contract for these guys, because you can't, in my opinion, and I think you're of the same mind, you can't suspend somebody for something they're not guilty of. Accusations are only that. And anybody can be accused of anything at any time. And that's why we have courts, and that's why we have a trial. And when you get acquitted, that's it. You've got a clean record. You're not guilty. You didn't do it. You didn't do what you were accused of. So what is the suspension for?
I don't know. And it would be nice if they would say what it's for. I mean, instead of just this is what it is, and that's that.
This matter is closed.
I was very surprised to see this. I was very surprised to see that the NHLPA said, okay. I'm sure they weren't happy about it, but they said, all right. I mean, I get that you want this to kind of be over with and just move on, and the players probably want that too, but I'm very surprised at all of this.
And the timing of it. They can come back December 1st. Well, whoop-de-effing do, man. I want to come back now. I want to go get a PTO now so that I can go into training camp and show what I can do. I want to go sign a team now in training camp while jobs are available. December 1st, every team's got their roster. Their salary cap is set. There's no place for me at that point. Especially for Carter Hart is, as we said, most likely to get contract, most likely to get work. But for these other guys, they need to play their way back into the league. And it's a great opportunity these next few weeks to do that in training camp. Sign a tryout, get to play in some preseason games, show the entire league what you can do, why you're still worth signing, and then see what the team is interested. But you can come back December 1st. Dude, the die is cast at that point. There's no jobs available. There's no tryouts in December. I need to play now.
Well, I'm with you on this one. I have no explanation. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
And just very confusing, very confusing. The Calgary Flames signed young goalie Dustin Wolf to a 7-year contract extension. The deal begins in the 2026-27 season, carries an average annual value of $7.5 million. Wolf has one more year left on a 2-year contract that was worth $1.7 million that he signed July of 2024. 24 years old. He had a 29-16-8 record last year, 910 save percentage, 264 goals against average, finished second in the Calder Trophy voting as Rookie of the Year. He was the 214th player selected in the 2019 draft. Only 3 players were taken after him in that draft. So great hit for the Calgary Flames. Good on Dustin Wolf for getting a big contract and for a guy that not a lot of people believed in. However, and we talked about this 2 weeks ago when you were here with Frank Nazar in Chicago, and I think certainly Dustin Wolf has accomplished more than he did, but I got to see a little more. I still got to see more before I sign him to a 7-year deal. He had a great rookie year, but I would still rather sign him for a shorter term deal. Have no doubt that this is the goalie of the future for years and years to come, and I'll pay maybe some extra money than I would otherwise if I signed him to a long term deal now. But I just, even as great as his first year was, I just don't. I want to see. I got to see more before I sign a guy to a big contract like that.
1,000% yes. I would say if I was the GM to him, I would say, Dustin, congrats on an obviously awesome rookie season. We're delighted. We believed in you the whole time. That's why we took you with the 4th last pick. We didn't draft you earlier. But look, congrats on a great season. We're not going to sign you this summer to an extension. We own your rights as an RFA after next year. He's not going anywhere. He's not a UFA. So go out there, do it again, and make me write you a bigger check next summer. Because and then in private, if anybody was saying, hey, we got to lock this guy up, I'd say, Steve Mason, go look him up. Rookie of the year for the Blue Jackets. Where's he now? Didn't last much longer. One season can be done as a goalie. We've seen it many times. Show me you can do it consistently. Show me you can do it again. Because now if he comes out and has a sophomore slump, if he belly flops this second year, if the league has a book on him and starts exploiting him, you're screwed. You're paying him $7.5 million for the next 7 years. It hasn't even started yet. If he goes out there and puts out an .892 save percentage and looks like ass, what the hell can you do? I mean, he's just going to be, well, I can't wait for my new contract to start. I'm rich. It's foolish to me to sign him to this. And I get that they're trying to get ahead of it and save themselves some money long-term. There's a higher probability that this contract looks foolish in the future than looks like a bargain, in my opinion. The guy was taken at the end of the draft for a reason. He developed, he had a great season last year. There's no doubt about it. But do it again, and I'll write you a bigger check next summer if you do.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And I think he's probably going to take a step back this year just because, as what you said, everyone now knows him. Everyone has a book on him. Everyone has scouted him. There's no surprises. We don't know what this guy does. I mean, you could argue everybody has a book on everybody, I suppose. But still, I wouldn't be surprised if he took a little step back. Look, I like him a lot. I root for him because he's from California, even though he's in the division with my favorite team. I hope it works out for him. But, well, it's definitely worked out for him. I mean,
it already did.
He's I mean, especially where he was selected and the raise he's getting, he's hit the jackpot. Good for him.
Yeah,
but
he's got another 8 years in the NHL guaranteed.
I just have to see more. I can't just see one season. You got to give me 3-4 seasons before I'm going to invest, 7-8 years in you.
Especially a goalie, as we've talked about. Look at the guys that are winning around the league. Logan Thompson, nobody wanted him. Now he's a star starter for the Capitals. Aiden Hill, Darcy Kemper, Cam Talbot. There's guys around the league. Linus Ullmark. There's a plenty of guys around the league that were not number one draft picks and have developed into something. And a lot of teams are winning with journeymen around the league. Jordan Binnington came out of nowhere, took over the job, got him a Stanley Cup, and is still the number one goalie in St. Louis. I'm not willing to invest that much after one season in net. No chance. Now the opposite. Now I'm a little bit hypocritical because if I had a guy that came out and was second in the Calder Trophy as a forward, I'd 100% be looking to invest in him because those are harder. That's, I think, a more replicable skill. You've shown the ability to score or create offense or do something like Lane Hudson. I'm a believer in Lane Hudson. I don't need to see a second season before I'm willing to write that check. But Frank Nazar, they must have had a gun to his head when he signed that contract.
Even Lane Hudson, as a GM, I wouldn't sign anybody to a big deal until I had to.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was saying is
Or
you're an RFA when it expires. I don't have to do anything right
right.
now.
Plus, or if it's someone who's it's just obvious, right, to everyone, and you
Right.
want that guy to be a cornerstone of your franchise, fine.
Right.
But
Macklin Celebrini has a great year.
right.
I'm willing to sign him to a long-term deal. He was the first overall pick. Somebody I got in the 6th round, 7th round. No. Prove me wrong, children. Prove me wrong.
I talked about there was a lot of goalie news this week. The Blackhawks signed goalie Spencer Knight to a 3-year, $17.5 million extension. 24-year-old had 1 year left on a contract. The extension now has him signed through the 2029-2030 season. 8-5-2 in 15 games for Chicago last year. 17-16-3 after he was traded to Chicago in the Seth Jones deal from Florida.
Chicago is baffling to me. I would be very confused if I was a fan.
We talked about them last week when we did our Central Division preview, and it's like,
why are you? We got to lock up Spencer Knight. Why?
Well, at least they didn't give him a 7-year deal.
No, that's true, but still, it's a 3-year deal for some pretty decent money. You know, he's getting the same amount as Lucas Dostal, basically per year. Dostal took over a starting job, looked great last year, was fantastic in net. No, Spencer Knight, absolutely not. I want to see a year, not another year. I want to see a year of you being an elite goalie before I'm ready to write that check. So I don't know what the Blackhawks are doing. And locking up this core, like, man, it's just the team's absolute garbage. And you're locking up players like, we can't let this slip away. We got a good thing going here. Do you? I'd be much more reluctant to be signing these players and locking them up. If this works out, they'll look like geniuses because they got guys at, I guess, below value prices, but I don't see it. I don't see us talking in 3 years about what a stud in net Spencer Knight is as the Blackhawks return to glory.
Buffalo Sabres number 1 goalie Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen dealing with an undisclosed injury. His timetable for return is unclear. The club described his injury as a tweak suffered in the offseason. Record of 25-25-7 last year for UPL. 3.20 goals against average at 887 save percentage. I have to assume in related news, the Sabres signed Alexander Georgiev this week, 29-year-old netminder, 1-year deal, $825,000. Split last year between the Avalanche and Sharks. Record of 15-26-4. 871 goals against average. 371 goals against average. 875 save percentage.
Yeah.
151, 108, 26 in his career with the Rangers, Avalanche, and Sharks.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously bad news for Buffalo, who's trying to end the longest playoff drought in NHL history. You don't want to start the season with your starting goalie on the shelf due to a tweak. And then he's playing his way back into playing shape during the season, hoping to not re-aggravate it. That's a tough situation, but we will talk more about them and their prospects in the second period.
Columbus Blue Jackets acquire goalie Ivan Fedotov from the Philadelphia Flyers for a 6th-round pick in 2026. Fedotov's 28, 6-13-4 record, 3.15 goals against average, 880 save percentage, and 26 appearances in his first NHL season last year.
I guess you can't have enough depth. We'll talk about them in a couple weeks when we preview the Metropolitan Division.
And our final goalie note, I think, of the week, Marc-Andre Fleury signed a tryout with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Of course, he officially had retired last spring after 21 years, but he's going to suit up for the team during an exhibition game against Columbus on September 27th. I assume he's not playing, just going to suit up. The 40-year-old Fleury was taken number 1 overall by the Penguins in 2003, spent his first 13 years in the Burgh, helping Pittsburgh to win 3 Stanley Cup titles. Pittsburgh GM Kyle Dubas said in a statement, quote, "The Penguins feel he and his family are most deserving of this opportunity to celebrate this full circle moment back to where it all started in front of the black and gold faithful," end quote. Fleury holds nearly every major goaltending record in Penguins history, including games played, wins, and shutouts.
I think he will play. I think he will play one last game in front of the Penguins, a preseason game that doesn't matter. And I don't know that he'll play the full game, but he will play long enough. He'll get the start. He'll play maybe until the first whistle, and then they'll take him out and give a victory lap in front of the fans. I love this so much more than the one-day contract, because this is a public event that the fans get to take part in. The one-day contract never made sense to me. Oh, I'm retiring as a pitcher. Please. No, you're not. You retired as a member of the Wild last year. This one-day contract means nothing. But this actually gets to suit up, go through warm-ups, get out on the ice, let the fans cheer him one last time, and then do a victory lap. I love this idea, and I think it's going to be a great moment. And the Penguins just made a preseason game a hot ticket in Pittsburgh.
That's 100% true.
That
Absolutely.
is
It'll be sold out.
It'll be sold out, topped out. The resale value, as season ticket holders are getting their money's worth out of their preseason game already. Maybe they have special merchandise, who knows? Take advantage of the opportunity. But
the secondary market people were thrilled with this news.
Oh, they loved it. Those that jumped quickly to get secondary tickets. But no, I love this idea, and I hope more teams take advantage of this. A guy that we're going to talk about in a second, I would love to see Corey Perry do this next year or 2 years from now, whenever he retires with the Ducks, and play one last game at the pond with the Ducks in training camp, and then skate off into retirement.
Yeah, you mentioned Corey Perry, the new LA Kings forward, going to be sidelined 6 to 8 weeks after undergoing knee surgery. Was injured in some sort of skating issue on Thursday. The 40-year-old's debut with the team will now have to wait until sometime in November. I was out on Thursday at the Kings opening of rookie camp and realized that on the adjacent ice rink from the ice where the Kings normally practice, the Kings were going through what they call the captain skate, where the captain or the leadership, the veteran players, organize a player skate, for lack of a better term. No coaches are around. I assume there's rules about how many official practices you can have, things like that. So this is all done, wink, wink, by the players. So I went over and watched that for a while, and I saw Corey Perry skating with Andrei Kopitar, basically just scrimmaging. There was no drills or anything like that. So the next day I wasn't there, was when Corey Perry got hurt. I did not hear if it was a collision with someone. And by the way, when I watched it, there's no contact to speak of. But guys are flying around. Who knows? A knee-on-knee hit. I can't imagine it was anybody checking him. Or maybe he just went down awkwardly. It happens. They're on skates. But anyway, when I heard the news was he was taken from the ice into the locker room in a wheelchair. I thought, oh, well, that's really, really bad.
Yeah.
So frankly, this is not as bad as I thought it could be. I was wondering if maybe he'd be done for the season. And the Kings, after all, really got him for the playoffs. So for him to miss, a month and a half of the season, fine. It's unfortunate. I'm not saying it's good. One thing that I thought was wild, though, this happened, I think it was Friday morning. He had surgery on Friday. I'm like, was the doctor waiting for the phone to ring? And then we got one. We're bringing him in. The same day you have the surgery as the injury. I don't know. I just thought that was wild that he didn't have to wait even a day to get this taken care of right away. Boom.
There's a lot of weird things in this. Number one, I've never heard of anybody taken off the ice on a wheelchair. A stretcher? Sure. Guys helping him off the ice? Sure. Yeah. Him limping off the ice? Sure. A wheelchair out on the ice?
I'm assuming there was no stretcher because there's no medics there. There's no ambulance there for that. You have that for games. You're required to have that.
Now this is where it gets into the semantics of it. So they do have that there because the rookie tournament was going on, or the rookie practice. So they have the Kings medical staff right there.
Well, the medical staff is there. I don't know that they have a gurney or something.
They have a stretcher. If somebody at the Kings rookie camp, you're telling me they don't have a stretcher to get a guy off the ice if he gets hurt?
I would imagine that they would call for EMTs to come.
Here's the thing. They can't go over and do it because it's not a team practice. It's not a team event. they're doing it voluntarily. So the players would have to have arranged for medical staff or something of that nature. So because of that, the semantics of it, he gets taken off on a wheelchair. He goes out. Now, with the injury, he can be seen by the Kings doctors. It's not like they can't see him. But so he goes in, and that's very odd. Usually they let's let it go. Let's swelling down, go down for a day. We'll get better x-rays tomorrow.
Right.
We'll know what the real diagnosis is. Nope. Let's get in there right away and get this taken care of, which leads me to believe that it was very obvious what the problem was, and yet it wasn't major enough that he's going to be out more than 2 months. So very odd, all things considered. I do think, and you mentioned they got him for the playoffs. You got to make the playoffs first, and missing a guy that is going to be a net front presence for your power play, losing that ability to develop that timing and chemistry and communication with your new teammates in training camp will impact the Kings a little bit, but it's better than I thought, because when I saw he was taken off the ice on a wheelchair. Now, the Kings know all about this, though, because unfortunately last year, Drew Doughty suffered a knee injury that was not real. It wasn't a knee on knee or something like that. It was basically getting stuck in the ice, right? Some rut on the ice.
Well, it was an ankle.
Or an ankle. Yeah.
And he missed most of the season.
Right. But my point is that's in my mind what I think happened is they're not Zamboniing that ice regularly. Guys are cutting it up. They're bent on the ice. He gets his leg caught. Maybe he goes into the boards awkwardly. Maybe he just turns awkwardly. Or like you said, just an accidental collision. Or just out of habit. The Kings laid him out. But it was very odd, everything around this. And luckily for Perry and the Kings, he is only out 6 to 8 weeks, which if it's on the shorter side, he's back by Halloween. So
I imagine they'll take their time with it, because why rush him?
They didn't take their time with the surgery.
No, they didn't. That's for sure. They certainly did not.
My goodness.
It's like they put up the bat signal, and the surgeon just dropped whatever he was doing and headed to the ER. I don't know.
Yeah, my goodness.
I think we have an email from our Dr. Puck. I don't know if he can answer that question or not, but maybe he's got some insight into that. Michael Misa, who I saw play on Saturday, the number 2 overall pick for the San Jose Sharks, signed his entry-level contract and obviously got on the ice very quickly. I did notice of the 32 players taken in the first round, 20 of them are still unsigned as of the recording of this show. So things are taking a little bit longer, maybe, than they normally do. I don't know. I
don't think most of these guys are expected to play this season in the NHL. So I don't think there's any real rush to get them signed. If they're returning to juniors or playing in college, I mean, obviously, if they're playing in college, they can't be signed, right? So, well, I don't know what the rules are now that the NIL money's out the window, but
yeah,
I don't think there's a real rush with guys that are not going to be in the NHL this season.
Some interesting coaching news. Washington Capitals assistant Mitch Love has been placed on team-imposed leave as a result of a pending NHL investigation. He was a hot coaching candidate during this offseason, interviewed for vacancies in Boston and Pittsburgh. According to an NHL source, the league received a letter that detailed allegations relating to Love's personal conduct when Love was interviewing with teams this offseason. 2 of the teams with whom he reportedly interviewed were sent a similar letter. The allegations predate his tenure with the Capitals. The NHL is conducting an investigation, and it has been over multiple months. So a bizarre situation for Mitch Love, who is currently he's not fired, but he's not working right now for the Washington Capitals.
Well, as we talked about earlier, the NHL only needs an allegation to suspend you, even if you are proven innocent. So unfortunately for him, the precedent and the die is cast on that, but very odd. And I know that in light of the Blackhawks situation and their investigation and the revelation of what happened with them many years ago, the NHL set up a hotline for team personnel to report any misconduct anonymously and safely. And almost immediately, probably they just plugged the phone in, and the Ducks were calling saying, "We got an abusive alcoholic as our GM." and then Bob Murray's ass was kicked out, and in came Pat Verbeek. So this could have been through that. You said they received a letter, which is interesting. That tells me lawyers are involved, because individual people I don't think would write letters and that kind of thing, emails or that such. But it sounds like lawyers are involved and creating a paper trail, and very interesting. I'm sure we'll get more details down the road, but yeah, it doesn't sound good. But we'll obviously wait for more details to emerge before we react to what could possibly have happened. We have no idea, obviously.
The Buffalo Sabres placed player development coach Adam Mayer on administrative leave after reports surfaced the former NHL player was arrested on drunk driving charges with his 3 children in the car last week. He was charged with 3 felonies, 3 misdemeanors, including aggravated driving while intoxicated with a child in the vehicle and endangering the welfare of a child. Mayer had an 11-year NHL season, a career, including 7 seasons with the Buffalo Sabres.
Now, you had a different childhood than I did, Eddie, but we both grew up a long time ago. And I'm guessing at some point in my childhood, my dad was over the legal limit while driving with me in the car, because the legal limit is not exactly high in California. I'm not making light of this, but I'm saying it sounds a lot more. It could sound a lot more sensational than it actually is, in the sense of this is something that was fairly, we don't know how far over the legal limit he was.
True, but to use your example, it was a different time when your dad was driving you around as an infant.
Oh yeah, no, we have a friend that has told us a story about driving home from a bowling alley in the middle of winter, not in California when it was very cold out. All the windows are down, and his dad singing as he returned home with them in the back seat. No seat belts, no nothing. But it was a different time. Drunk driving still existed back then, but it wasn't the crackdown it is now. My point being, if he was, let's say the blood alcohol content was 0.09 and it was 0.08 is the legal limit. I can, I'm not saying he should have done it, but it's not the most outrageous thing I've ever heard. Now, if it was 0.15 and he's absolutely bombed out of his mind, then yeah, that's a problem. But I'd like a little bit more details before I crucify him. But sounds like a bad decision, as you and I have talked about. These guys, there's so much to lose. It's not worth it. You and I don't drink, so it's easy for us to say don't drink and drive. We don't drink. The fact that bars have parking lots has always been outrageous to me. If you don't have a parking lot, then I can't drive my car there, and I can't drive home drunk. So, or at least make it a little bit less inviting. So I'm not completely willing to crucify him just yet, but obviously a dumb thing to do in general. And then God forbid he got in an accident and was proven to be drunk, hurt himself, hurt his kids, hurt somebody else. That would be just tragic. And that's the risk you take. He has to know better. He has to be smarter than that. He's not a young man, and now he's suspended and could potentially lose his job because of this.
Update on a story we talked about last week. We had mentioned that San Jose Sharks assistant GM Ryan Clough resigned from his position. We now know why. He took the assistant GM job with the New York Rangers. Apparently it was a better situation for whatever reason, even though he played for a long time with the Sharks. He had previously worked for the Rangers before, so he's returning to a place where he was. So apparently, I don't know if it was more money or if he just liked working for the Rangers more than the Sharks, but we now know why Ryan Clough left the Sharks to take the same job with the New York Rangers.
How is that not tampering?
I don't know. Can you tamper with front office people?
I would think so. I mean, if I got somebody under contract and you're talking to them about a job offer and they leave my organization to take that job with you, it's like if I got a head coach, he's having a great season, and some team that's bombing right now says, hey, by the way, we're going to offer you the moon this summer, so come coach us next season. You got it. Just let me finish it out here. That's not kosher. So,
well, I mean, I assume he asked the Sharks, I've been offered another job. Can I leave? I guess they said, yeah, goodbye.
Yeah. No,
So
I'm just curious. It would. I mean, obviously the Sharks are okay with it because they're not making us think about it. But yeah, and it's not like he's taking government secrets over there. Hey, here's our scouting report on how to beat the Islanders. Ooh, what a boon. So no, it's just interesting. Just something that occurred to me as we talk about with Kaprizov. He obviously knew this job was available, or else he wouldn't have left the Sharks.
one final story, and sad note whenever you're talking about somebody passing away, but former NHL Players Association executive Bob Goodnow died at the age of 72. No cause of death was given. Obviously, he was the head of the Players Union for many years. He helped launch the World Cup of Hockey back in 1996, which led to players making their Olympic debut in 1998. He was the head of the Players Association as well during multiple lockouts, including the 2004-2005 season where the entire season was canceled. He would resign later that summer after that happened. Some other contributions under his watch. The union established an agent certification program. They secured the right for players to get second medical opinions and worked with the NHL to implement a substance abuse and behavioral health program for players and their families.
Yeah, sad to hear of that. A name that you and I remember, certainly being a key part of the NHL in this last 30 years, since he's, when you're representing the Players Association and all these negotiations and forging the future of the league for the players on and off the ice, that's obviously a massive role. So his impact will forever be felt in the NHL, but sad to hear of that. And as you and I now know, 72 is not old. Young man. Shame to hear it.
Anything else you wanted to mention that you heard this week in the NHL, or maybe something that slipped from my research for this week?
I have a question for you because I don't think we're going to talk about too much in the third period, but you mentioned Michael Misa signing his contract and you got to see him. How did he look? He specifically, we'll talk about some of the other players, as compared to the rest of the players on the ice this past weekend.
He played 2 games, one against the Ducks and one against the Kings. I didn't see him against the Ducks. I only saw him against the Kings. I would say he didn't necessarily stand out much. There was one really nice play he had to score. That score ended up him scoring a goal in the third period of the game that I was watching. He had a really nice little pass to, I think is it Quinn Musty for the Sharks. And as soon as he passed it to him, he shot down the ice for a 2-on-1 and ended up scoring. It was a nice play. But, when you think number 2 overall pick, you kind of think you're going to be able to spot him consistently, because he's going to be looking like he's better than everybody else. That wasn't the case. But that doesn't mean he's not. It was just one game.
No, right. This tournament, we'll talk a little bit more about it in the third period. This little rookie face-off that they had. A lot of fans, because it's the first time they've seen a lot of these draft picks in person or in months, a lot of them are forming opinions on their readiness for the NHL or their development. And it's very unfair, in my opinion, because these guys got there on Thursday, had one day of practice, and then started playing a game with guys they met the day before. There's no systems in place. There's no cohesion. You may not even remember the name of your teammate. So seeing them, evaluating them is kind of unfair. We'll get a chance to see him in training camp. I expect him to be given every opportunity to win a roster spot with the Sharks. Why not? They're not looking to make the playoffs this season, most likely. So why not give him an opportunity to develop at the NHL level if he proves himself ready in the coming weeks?
Wearing number 77. It's a little bit of a different than when you and I were watching growing up. You got those numbers when you were some schlub who is not going to be around very long or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe it was Patrick Kane who changed that, but the high numbers now are a cool thing, and he's wearing 77.
Yeah, I think it became a bigger thing, certainly as you talked about with certainly when the NBA, you couldn't have a number that was higher than 5. for either the first number or the second number, and you couldn't have 0 because they needed to be able to show the fouls with their hands. So if it was 55, they could represent that or anything below that, but you couldn't have 68, or whatever. So the NHL, though, I don't think it was. I think, Gretzky was 99, Mario was 66, Yager was 68. I think those are the guys that kind of changed the mindset of the high numbers and made them more in vogue. And then you had Sidney Crosby come in and he's wearing 87. So I think it was those guys that kind of set the bar as far as high numbers. But you're right. Those used to be you got to earn your number when you pick it down in the 20s or something. And now it's just, plus for a lot of these franchises, so many of the low numbers are retired. If you play for the Canadiens or the Blackhawks or the Bruins or the Rangers, those teams, those numbers are not available. So,
All right. Anything else you want to mention?
No, sir.
Well, then that'll do it for our first period here of the YouTube show. If you enjoyed what you saw and heard, check out the remaining 2 periods of the podcast. Search Puck Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you're already listening to the podcast, the second and third periods are coming right up. If you are watching on YouTube, I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Doug Stolhand. We'll talk to you next time with another edition of the Puck Podcast.